Well, mental health problems are just one price for some Somalis are paying for living in a failed state. A new report says the collapse of the country has cost the world $55 billion over the last 20 years. Here's where the money has gone. $13 billion has been spent on humanitarian aid for refugees. Warlords control most of the country, and peacekeeping missions have cost more than $7 billion so far. Ransoms paid to Somali pirates are dwarfed by the spiraling insurance rates. That bill is $22 billion and rising. Investigating piracy and other illegal activity adds another $2 billion. The functioning parts of the country do so mostly because of the remittances from Somalis abroad. They have sent home a little more than $11 billion. And joining us now is Professor Afyare Elmi. He is a professor of international affairs at Qatar University here in Doha. It's great to speak with you again, as always. All right, so that litany of costs, we'll get to more of the human cost in a moment, but just those figures alone, about $55 billion over the years from the 90s on. It's just too much money. It's time to disengage. Where am I wrong in saying that?
Well, I think that's wrong. First of all, 55 billion is not too much when you compare to Afghanistan and Iraq and other failed state cases where we have seen like trillions or even sometimes, billions of dollars spent on that. So when you look at the 55 billion itself, it may be, big money, but when you look at the state failure cases, that's not a lot. But also there is another premise here that that money was spent on Somalia directly, and that's not the case. The money the donors has given the money to the UN agencies, which basically spent mostly in Nairobi and other capitals, and also on issues that has no relations to.
So you're suggesting money that was earmarked for Somalia didn't go to Somalia?
Most of the money was
most of the money.
Most of the money, I would say.
Most of the 55 billion that we're talking about.
Most of the 55. Let's just take aside the
whatever the figure is.
The money that's sent by Somalis from overseas, the remittances,
sure,
of course, that's different. But the aid money mostly spent on Nairobi and other places, and also this money, particularly the money that went to peacebuilding, went to the African forces, not to the Somali forces. So here what we see is that the money is not directly going to Somalia and Somali institutions. Therefore, you can't expect anything when you don't spend anything.
So are you suggesting that if all the money that had been allocated and earmarked for Somalia had actually stayed in Somalia, that we would be looking at a different Somali state?
Definitely.
Really? You believe that?
I really believe that. And not only that, by the way, peacebuilding, and particularly building a failed state, is not a cheap thing. And it will cost, billions and billions of dollars. And there are many sources that, can raise, even including Somalia itself, which has resources that it can contribute and put on the table. But here, the policymakers on the part of the donors were not creative enough. And also, they were not willing to spend directly on the Somalia, on the ground. Look at the case of Turkey now. Turkey has gone directly and engaged with the Somali government, and it's having tremendous impact on the ground. And I think that's what's needed. Here we have like billions of dollars humanitarian aid and this and that, and all of it is basically going to administrative costs and other costs that has nothing to do on improving the situation on the ground.
Paint a narrative for me here. Take a moment and do this. Have you given much thought to the human suffering of the people? Forget the governments and the back and forth with the governments. I'm really talking about the suffering of people, the people who have died, the people who have been internally displaced, people who have actually fled the country. Have you given much thought about their plight 90s on?
Yes, I have. And by the way, I just came back from Mogadishu, and I have seen in my own eyes what the magnitude of the suffering and the magnitude of the destruction in Somalia. Yes, this is beyond imagination that people in Somalia, at each individual level to the institutions. In today's Mogadishu or other cities, you cannot have like an honorable hospital or a good educational institution that is functioning well. So what we have here is that a society that has collapsed as a whole. Yes, the diaspora Somalis have done well and have helped it to survive, to keep the country, at least surviving. But at this stage, international community has failed Somalia and the Somali people, and they have not spent the money where it should have been spent. And I think starting this, this engagement is not the solution. Engaging Somalia directly is the solution.
Okay. Professor Afyare Elmi is a professor of international affairs at Qatar University here in Doha. It's always great to talk to you. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.